So, freight fraud isn't a storm you wait out. It's just the weather. It's not anything that you can just wait out anymore. Crews are sharper, the paperwork looks pristine, and the handoff between the digital hustle and parking lot theft is seamless. 1 minute it's a spotless certificate of insurance in your inbox, and the next it's a door cut at a dark lot or a dispatcher who never was. The target list hasn't changed: docks, yards, inboxes, bank rails, but the tempo has. Scams are faster, coordination is tighter, and gut feel isn't enough. So today we're cutting through the noise. What's actually new, where it's hitting, and what separates a close call from a costly loss. We'll talk simple processes that hold up at 3 a.m. in the morning, and the cyber basics that slam the door on these takeovers. So if you're moving freight, this is all about keeping loads and margins in your name. Let's bring the crew on. So a whole bunch more people than we expected. So we got everybody. We were thinking we wouldn't get everybody. So we have Steve and Dale. Those were the planned guests. Let's start out with Steve. Do you want to do a quick introduction?
Steve Vest, owner and founder of Nationwide Equipment Transportation. Check me out on TikTok. That's where most of my videos are at. But trying to help out with the other crew here to keep the fraud out of our network and hopefully teach some other people how to do it better.
Great. Appreciate you having on or coming back on, Steve. You were on a couple months ago, and we got halfway through the episode, which I will play that little great little scene of yours here a little later. But Dale, you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. My name is Dale Prax. I've been in this industry about 32 years as a owner operator, fleet owner, broker, and most recently founder of Freight Validate, a carrier identity and vetting verifications company. And most recently, I've joined up with the folks at truckstop.com as their freight fraud czar.
Freight fraud czar. Is that on the business card?
It is.
Awesome. Good deal. And then we've got Bain, and we lost Danielle. So I don't know. She must have just popped off. So we'll see if she comes back. But Bain, quick introduction.
Yeah, so I'm Robert Bain. I'm a senior consultant and our director of partnerships here at GLCS, and I am the strongest man in logistics.
Good deal. All right, we'll see if Danielle makes it back. She is in California at a fraud summit. I don't remember the exact details on where she was at. She said she was going to be tight on time. Oh, here she is. So she's coming back on. We'll pop her. There we go. All right.
Sorry, guys.
And there's that's all right.
I had technical difficulties. I'm like, I can't hear anything. Hi.
No problem. No problem. So you're up. Why don't you do a quick introduction?
Yeah, I am Danielle Spinelli. I am part of Descartes, My Care Portal, MacroPoint. I also have a podcast called Tell Me Everything, where we do Fraud Girl Fridays, which is why I'm excited to talk about fraud with you guys today for a little bit. I am here in California at the Cargo Theft Summit, so I'll only be on for just a little bit, but I wanted to pop in and say hi because you guys are all the experts on all the freight fraud and theft that's going on, so excited to be a part of it.
Appreciate you dropping in and saying hi. It's not a freight fraud episode without Fraud Girl. So and thanks for reaching out there, Shorty. Been a while. Hope you're doing well. All right. So first off, how is that now the summit you're at, Danielle? How is that going? Is there quite a few people there?
There is definitely a lot of people. I think that a lot more than expected. The room is like a lot of people are having to stand because there's so many people here. But it is like a free event, and they have lots of law enforcement that came. They're on the panels talking about things, and that I came early to hang out with the California Highway Patrol guys as well. But no, the event's been like super interesting. I have learned a lot, and normally, I'm sure all you guys are kind of the same. We go to so many conferences, and normally it's kind of the same freight fraud, theft stuff that they talk about nonstop, and you're just like, oh, I want to learn something new, you know. And this one, I actually learned like a lot of new things. So I'm excited to kind of take what I found out and share it out there on the show. So.
Well, Dell, you might be thinking the same thing I am, that, you know, California is this epicenter of fraud. I hope they're not giving away all our secrets really out there trying to let the bad guys into the room, but I don't know who all's there.
No, it's definitely very vetted. It's so Scott Cornell, he's it's all his stuff, those Travelers and CargoNet. Everybody who came in, like very vetted. They even, like, I guess the FBI were trying to come in to learn stuff, and they excluded them because they couldn't verify them enough before they got in. So even though it's a free event, they are definitely vetting. So
That's good.
So the FBI couldn't get into that event, so they decided to go and arrest Chauncey Billups instead. Perfect.
Right.
What a
That's
great
why
day.
they were busy, had more important things than freight fraud. They had gambling issues to take care of.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
fair enough.
they did pop those 12 sings the other day. So they're making differences out here from what I hear. So
No, that's good. You know what? What's interesting is you said that there's no charge for the event, and I'll say this: I've been to a couple of no charge events this year, and I've probably taken more away intellectually from those events than a lot of the paid events. So I think that you find that you get a different discussion at many of those events, and that the people who are putting them on are trying to make a statement, and that they do it. They make their statement. It's not about creating some sort of frilly event. It's about making a statement, and they make that statement. So
it's not
so I
like a pay to
appreciate.
play. Yeah, it's not like a pay to play. It's here to educate. So yeah, definitely, I learn a lot more from these events too. I totally agree.
So the question from Shorty: when is the next freight fraud event? He'd love to be there. I think NMFTA has one going on in Dallas next week on Monday. That's a paid event. I don't know when the next free one is. Austin.
And
Yeah,
I think
sorry. The last
Tapa's got one. Tapa's got one in December. I'm pretty sure that's free too. I could be wrong, but this one, the Cargo Theft Summit, is I think yearly that they do, and I believe they usually have it in California. So
yeah, that would be an interesting one to attend next time. All right, so let's kick off the discussion. In the last 60 to 90 days, what sort of new tactics, or even in the last 6 months, if we want to reach back that far, what kind of new tactics are we seeing that we want to discuss? We don't necessarily have to discuss everything. I don't like to put stuff out there, but to be honest with you, at this particular point, I feel like we're kind of falling behind in some cases. That I used to be very concerned about discussing tactics. I used to be concerned about discussing the technology that's out there, but I feel like it's pretty well known at this point, and that a lot of the bad guys are pretty on the ball on what we're doing. So unless you're very edgy on your defenses, that's one thing you'll probably want to be careful about what you're talking about. But as far as the last 60, 90 days, what tactics have moved from edge case to common, and what are you guys seeing out there?
I'll go ahead and start. One thing that we're seeing now, since the English language proficiency order came in and the non-domicile CDL part, we're starting to see a lot of guys that were driving the big trucks go into the expedited trucks, the box trucks, the sprinters, those kind of things, because they don't need to speak English. They don't need to have a CDL. They don't need to have an ELD. So we're finding that the criminals are saying, this is a good place for me to hide and do some bad stuff. Because they don't have to follow all those laws. So we're seeing that migration. Plus, they don't have to have an ELD, so they can drive twice as many miles as they're driving the big truck. The dollars per mile is not much difference because they're so cheap anyway. They don't have to pay for 18 tires. They only pay for 4. A Sprinter truck costs $60,000, not $200,000. So we're seeing that migration happen, and we're adjusting our systems to follow that. That's one thing that's happened, since June.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that too, Nate, is that, Selectus is the big load board for that. And we don't use that at our company, but there are a lot of brokers that are using it. Well, there are a lot of double, triple, quadruple brokered loads on that platform, and we need to put pressure on them and DAT regarding the sprinters, because there are companies out there that everybody's familiar with that are basically taking loads from a load board and putting them on Selectus, or they have a network of Sprinter vans that are running illegally, underinsured, and not following the letter to the law. And they're the ones that are actually probably making more money by putting those guys in the Sprinter vans than the broker themselves, because brokers are just, oh, this company like Empire National or Carolina Logistics or some of those companies that have been named on the internet of being part of that organization, you know, they make it too easy to not use them for a lot of brokers. And so that's where the shift is. So they shifted from dry van flatbed, they went to cars for a little while, did really well in the cars market. Now they're going to the Sprinter van market. You're going to see a lot of stolen loads starting popping up on that side if you're not being careful with who you're working with. And if you're using a Selectus or you're using a carrier that's just using a bunch of different people, you're going to have some issues.
Yeah.
So you think it's moving, or do you think it's expanding? Because the numbers we're seeing are showing that freight fraud is continuing to expand.
Yeah, I think it is. You know, I think that, you know, I was just at F3 Freight Waves, and they had the list of the top 100, the top 25, the top 1, and Genlog's, you know, those guys in Highway, they all hang at the top. But you know who really is the best at freight fraud technology is the fraudster themselves. They are so
Right.
far ahead of us that it's almost insane that we can't catch up with them. The thing I think we got to really start with is the top FMCSA and the bottom the shipper. If those two can do their jobs the right way, the rest will meet in the middle.
100%. Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of obviously play on, you know, Telegram and, you know, private chat rooms and Facebook groups and things like that. And that's where a lot of the fraud perpetuates, because people get into the industry, they don't know what they're doing, and they see someone on social media that's telling them to do this, this, or this. And so they follow blindly without really vetting who they're working with, and not realizing that, one, they're working with an owner operator they're leasing underneath that isn't going to pay them, but also might redirect them to take a load another place. So again, I like what Dale said there. If we could go from this side of FMCSA to shipper and compress that a little bit and get rid of some of the players on the outsides, it'll help tremendously.
Well, I think that I'm
just
sure
want to
different
comment
too.
real quick on the expansion of the fraud, though. I think there is a bit of a misnomer with that, is that we are also uncovering more and more. It's been going on for decades, you know, because it's become such a high profile. Now we're just finding more that was already there. This was going on in the Sprinter market. It was going on in the Class 8 market. It's going on in multiple different markets. And we're just much more aware of these things now. And to your point, Dale, yes, the fraudsters are way ahead of the curve with all of us. And in many cases, we're 2, 3, 4 years behind these guys. I know, Nate, there was one particular instance that we saw where there was a VPN that was used that supposedly none of these, you know, tracking systems are susceptible to VPNs. And the only way they found out that it was doing this and using this virtual signal was the breadcrumb trail on the map was a complete straight line and not, you know, slightly wavered as you would see.
And perfectly separated at a perfect amount of duration.
Correct.
So Danielle, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, outside of like actual theft, I'm hearing a lot of fake broker agents coming on board to people, like totally posing as completely, you know, they're not even legit, and I think there are a lot of the fraudsters too, and they're coming in, they're learning about the freight, they're saying they're doing all these things, getting paid. Some of them are even just finding as much intel as they can on the company. If they don't have enough security against like their broker agents and there's not enough separation, they're finding about the freight, they're stealing it that way, or just getting paid for things that aren't even real loads because they're just putting things in systems and then dipping out. So that's one of the new things I hear.
I've had that happen actually with our freight agent program, as people try to get in the front door. Well, I do a lot of background checks and a lot of making sure I have documentation of who I'm actually working with, Zoom calls, you know, getting them set up in our system. And then I've had a couple of them like try, everything kind of got to that point. And then when they start getting trained on our system and realize that I'm not going to show them my customer data, I have my agents completely separated so they can't see each other's data. They can't see other loads. All they can do is their own. When they see that in our platform, and then they also see that they can't even book a load without credit, without security checkpoints in our system, you know, I have to give the person credit. The agent's not allowed to do that. And the the agent programs that are getting in trouble and the big brokers that are having loads stolen left and right are the ones that are allowing their vetting to be done by their agents. And if that, we could just fix that by the big 10 brokers, big 100 brokers saying, hey, I get it. You guys are moving 50 some thousand loads a month, but you need to have a centralized, person, which we do here. We're a small potato, but like if I was the big brokers moving millions of dollars of freight every day, I want a single or a couple people that are vetting every new carrier that's coming in the door, right? Like for one, I wouldn't be bringing on as many carriers as they do because I already have a network of carriers that I should be reaching out to, and I should be able to cover most of my loads without even posting. But if I am going to bring on a new carrier, I guarantee you I'm not going to let my agents decide that, because that is a greed thing that the agents are going to do just to make more money. They're going to use whoever, they don't care. And that's why they keep getting loads stolen. So I hope that they will take that to heed and start vetting their carriers better as just a small group of people instead of letting 100 agents do it,
I think that goes even a step further, Steve, that in a down economy, those big box agencies are the only vetting that they do for their agents that they're bringing on is their book of business size. Because they're trying to keep people happy in a down
That's
economy.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah. Well,
that's
the problem.
and a lot of people
That's
are
the
just
problem.
desperate.
Yeah, but that's the problem, right? You can't do that.
Right, that's just the problem.
You will get into trouble in this industry 99 out of 100 times by greed and by wanting to make more money. That's not the reason you should be doing this job, and moving too fast. Yeah, 100%.
Moving too fast. But I will say this though, if we're largely seeing this in an agent model, we haven't seen. I think as the market starts to switch here, that agent model is going to get turned on its head a little bit, and so that may become a little different here shortly. So, but that being said, I've heard it beyond the agent model. I've heard bad actors actually tapping employees for fraudulent behavior and asking them to give data to them, on basically act more of a espionage sort of scenario where, hey, feed me data and I'll give you money. I don't think we've seen any scenarios where people have been arrested in regards to that, but I've been hearing rumors along that lately. So, but what's interesting is that this behavior is all coming about in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's becoming more and more and more. And as I think Dale alluded to, as we get better at defending ourselves, they get smarter on the attack and stranger on the attack. So they're escalating their game. They're very smart. They're very fast. We're trying to make money. We're out there trying to be honest companies making money. They're out there trying to find their way around it. So, but they're spending a full time, they have employees that are out there working their way around it all the time, where we're trying to operate and move freight. So there are certainly organizations out there like Danielle's that are trying to defend us full time. So, and we appreciate that, but that's an interesting view there, Bing.
Apparently,
that's interesting. That's interesting. Nate, that's interesting that you said that about the internal people working within a company, because really, again, moving too fast, hiring too many people, these big organizations that are turning and burning 30 employees a month because that's their model to grow their book of business, right? Like, I think that model is broken. I don't see the agent model changing or going away. I think for us, we want to bring on agents that have a book of business, right? Or teach someone new how to do it. But
one second, Steve. Danielle, you got to go. Thank you for coming on.
Okay.
So we'll see you in a couple of days. So
we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Frog Girl.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
But I think that the agent model is good and can work for people that are experienced, vetted, people in the industry that has been doing it for a really long time. Like you said, this started happening 5 years ago after COVID. There's a lot of us that have been in this industry for 20 plus years that have been doing it the right way for a long time. Right. And those are the people that I bring on for my agent program. I don't want some of these people in my system for that exact reason. Like, you don't want a bad actor. And so you better be doing your background checks. You better be checking who you're working with. There's always been under the hand table money going on in this industry from back in the 70s and 80s. Even it's still going to continue today. But if you do your work up front and don't let them in the front door, like Dale always talks about, whether that's a carrier, an agent, an employee, a customer even, you've got to
Even
do
a
your
vendor
work.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, agreed. And I mean, being cautious, that doesn't mean that anyone who jumped in the industry 5-6 years ago isn't equipped to deal with this, but it does mean that you got to be a little, most of the brokers who are working in, who came in slightly before or during COVID haven't experienced a capacity shortage. It has been post your load and maneuver that load until you get it covered. I mean, how many of your loads, Steve, are posted on a load board?
20 to 30%.
Yeah,
And we're
so
a smaller player, but we try to cover our loads with carriers that we've already worked with in the past. We do a lot more box trucks and dry vans than flatbeds, but we do both. But yeah, we try not to post loads, especially after COVID, after the fraud. It's like, and I think a lot of brokers are doing the same thing. They're pulling back to stay within their own, network. And, these carriers jump in and they get mad because we don't want to work with them for 90 days or 180 days or a year or two. That's just good business for any broker right now, is to kind of have a waiting period a little bit. It sucks for the new people coming in, but it protects you as a broker to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and taking it slow to bring someone on board. Like I said, some of the bigger brokers, when I see their loads posted, I just shake my head, because I'm like, if I'm only posting 20 to 30% and they're moving 50,000 loads, why are they posting anything at all? Like
right.
I know CH Robinson has their own load board. I never see their loads posted. They're doing it the right way. They're staying within their own network of carriers that they are vetted and brought in, and they work with new carriers as well, but they do a good job of making sure that that's taken care of. But when you see an actual top 5 brokers posting loads constantly, it's like, what are you guys doing? I mean,
we work with brokers that you enter a order in the system and it may go directly to a load board.
One thing
just dependent upon parameters. Go ahead, Dale.
Truck Shop announced this week that they just opened their van only, or their locked load board, where when you post a load, it's only going to go to your private load board. It's only going to go to your network, and then you put it in tiers. If you don't get it covered in a certain amount of time, it'll go to the next tier. So I think that's a smart way to go. I think that keeps your group of good carriers together. And this is, people keep forgetting this is a relationship business. Let's get back to that and build these relationships, not this post and pray kind of stuff that we've been getting used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm playing in the post and pray golf tournament as well on Monday. So,
Steve connected that. So Steve connected that. So which I am not. I'm going to be out in lovely San Diego at the time, but I'll be thinking of you guys. It'd be fun to find a way to play in. I played in the first one, but haven't been able to make another one because it's just such a long week.
And it's the last week of October, which I really don't like. And I've tried to tell them, like, don't put these at the last week of months. And October is like our busy month for a lot of people. Like,
sure.
To be gone on next week's going to be rough. I'm going to be working on my laptop a lot. So, but yeah, it's, I think it'll be interesting to see. I've never played in the golf tournament before, and I'm not really that good. I have to play with rented clubs because I'm not bringing my own, but we'll see how it goes.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I lost my train of thought there. We were talking about load boards. Oh, private loads. What I really like about the concept of private loads is it gives smaller brokers so phishing, right? Anything we can do to get off of emails, anything that we can get off of email as workflow, to me, being a managed service provider, for brokers, for carriers, anything that we can get off of email workflow is important, right? And brokers sending out Excel spreadsheets, email lists, whatever the case may be. If you think your email is private, you're probably wrong. So that can be shared out to other people. That can be, worst case scenario, you've been infiltrated and someone's watching your email. Hopefully that's not the case. But the reality of it is, if you have a contained network that you have through a secure provider like TruckStop that is going out to actors that you want to see it, and that's a contained universe that everyone's seeing, and there's a waterfall effect that's happening. I think that's healthy, especially if you're a 10 million, 20 million, $30 million brokerage, and you can obviously do this through your TMS as well if you have a TMS that's robust enough to handle this. But if you don't have a TMS that's robust enough to handle this, this is a great way of doing it. And I really, really like what Truck Stop's doing there.
Yeah, I think that the load boards are trying to become a bigger player in eventually. I really honestly believe they're going to get their brokerage authority and kind of just get rid of the brokers off their platform altogether. That's my assumption in the next 5 years. We'll see if it comes to happen or not. But kind of the way they're moving, they're creating TMSs. They're creating a environment to not have to worry about brokers and get shippers on there. And they already have some shippers on there. So that makes most brokers a little bit nervous, and they've all been calling me trying to say that's not going to happen. Well, we'll see. But that program that they've done at Truck Stop, we already built into our own private TMS. So our shippers can actually waterfall their carriers, 1, 2, and 3 tiers if they have their own direct carriers. And then if they need to roll it over to the broker network, it can roll over within an hour or two, whatever they set as a parameter, like, hey, we want to use our carriers first, and then it rolls over to the brokerage side. So again, not letting the people into the TMS is the most important thing. But I think a lot of TMSs are very vulnerable. And I think Dale actually commented on this on LinkedIn maybe the other day, is like how important the technology stack being secure is going to be the most important thing going forward, because anything can be hacked. And if you don't have a really secure network and not letting people in and being able to make sure, like you said, at midnight, that someone's not hacking in and stealing a load or something, like, I think is going to be vitally important. Who you start working with, what tech platforms you're going to work with, making sure that they're not going to have an issue that's going to cause your business problems.
And operationally, this comes to spending time consistently talking to your people about that fraud exists and that fraud's a thing. It is very easy to get desensitized to your job and what you're doing, especially when you're moving, to your point, Steve, 50,000 loads a month. Do you care about one load that may seem a little off? No, because you've got 49,000 other ones you're going to be worried about. The problem is that one load could also be a $10 million load of cell phones that now is a huge problem. And so, taking every single transaction that you have, and to your point, Nate, when you have email as the main communication tool, you don't always see the signs of something possibly being amiss. So I always go back to my grandfather's, first rule of business: and God we trust, will always pay cash. That's kind of how we have to always look at everybody, is like, it's not that they're out to get us, but that we have to make sure to protect the business first at all times.
Yeah, one thing Nate brought up that's important that a lot of people, even at these big tech conferences, forget, that they use fraud too widely, right? Strategic cargo theft starts with deception and fraud. Fraud starts with bad hygiene when it comes to cybersecurity. And so bringing up the phishing part, everybody forgets about the cybersecurity, but that's really has become the start of fraud.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the cybersecurity, that was sort of where I was going. And then I think we'll run the commercial right after I make this point. But yeah, the start of fraud, at least the digital side of it, because obviously we certainly have a more physical side to this, where people are showing up and physically hijacking loads, which is more theft, I suppose. But there's a cyber component to this, a cybercrime component to this. It's not even a component. Freight fraud is a cyber crime. And when Steve was mentioning that, are we worried about, someone hacking your TMS or any of your data? And you look at integrations and how your integrations are made and the data flow and who is building those integrations, and can that integration be intercepted? There's all kinds of different pieces. And as you add in SaaS solutions and start stacking them together, you have all this data flowing around the internet. And what happens if one of those solution goes down? What happens if somebody gets a password? What happens if an employee is compromised, et cetera, et cetera? So, I actually wrote an article that will be out on the Cheney Digest here tomorrow or Saturday, whenever he puts it out, that will talk about AWS, which isn't necessarily this topic, but what happens when SaaS fails? What happens when you are compromised? Because previously you're on premise, right? You have control over, and you can build your own wall around your product. But in the future, you don't have control over that anymore. You're renting space on someone else's solution, and you don't get to build the wall around it anymore. But you still can do things to strengthen your organization to ensure that you're not exposed. So there's an article coming out for me that will include that. But we'll go to break here real quick, a minute and a half, and we'll be back. If you have any questions for us, post them up. Love to handle them, but we'll see you real soon.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the time-critical world of trucking and logistics, every minute counts. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT and technology services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep trucking and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them with our industry connections and proactive approach. We keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
And we're back.
Jamming, man.
Yeah, well, that's all Natalia there, I think, on the last one. So actually on the first one, well, that was Missy and Natalia. They redid the first one. So finally, that commercial's been around for a long time, and it needed to get reworked. So
Well, you were just talking about with the SaaS platform before the break, like we integrate with, My Carrier Packets, My Carrier Portal, and also MacroPoint, which they're both now part of the same company. And so, we want to integrate with Internet Truck Stop or DAT to load post on our TMS eventually. But like you said, as a broker that's been in it a long time, you still better have a backup plan about how you're going to move freight if everything goes down. When you mentioned AWS, I mean, there were so many people in the industry that were struggling to work on Monday or Tuesday or whenever that happened.
Right.
Luckily, none of our platforms were connected to that or involved in that, but it just made me think, like, how secure are you in your operation? Can you move freight without that? And so for us, we've been doing it for so long. I still have a fax machine. If all else failed, I literally could fax something to somebody. But it goes to show you that there is some vulnerability still in the supply chain, from the shippers to the brokers to the carriers, because there's a lot of people that don't know how to operate without their phone in their hand.
Well, the more tech you add to it, the more vulnerable you are. You have more possible things that can fail, right? So, I mean, when you go back to the old days where it was trucks and phones, worst thing that could happen is the phone goes down, but even then you had drivers who would just figure it out. Right. Now the driver will sit. So and that's not anything negative towards drivers, but that's just how the industry's evolved. So no instructions.
When DAT goes down or Internet Truck Stop goes down, like Reddit board flies off the handle. Like, is everybody else? Oh, I can't find any loads. I don't have any loads. I'm like, do you not have any relationships at all with people? You can pick up the phone and be like, hey, I'm in Kansas City. Do you got a load for me today? Like, they just totally can't function. And that really is not good for your business. If you can't pick up the phone and know who you're going to call, not Ghostbusters, but somebody.
Yeah. We talk about the same thing when it comes to vetting. If you can't vet a carrier without technology, you never vetted them in the first place.
100%.
People use technology as a crutch rather than a tool, and that's what ruins their whole infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that how we got here in this problem in the first place, though? I'm calling this one out and have been for several years. The reason why we're here in the first place is we're relying on systems to automate this process that used to be a human interaction. And sure, it's been a problem my whole career, but it's never been this big of a problem. I mean, I've had loads stolen and whatnot throughout my career, but it was a couple a year at a relatively large organization. And we would adjust a process and probably somebody get fired because they didn't follow the process, and et cetera, et cetera. But now we're watching lights. We're maybe not even watching. Somebody's expediting a process, skipping some steps, but we're not even following the process anymore. We're digitizing everything. We're automating everything. And it's all about how many carriers can I add on this week or this day? How many new moves can we make? And how fast can I get this load booked? Not who can I get it booked with? And, that I think is part of the reason why we've gotten into this problem.
I think the agent model can solve that. And you mentioned you maybe thought it was going to go away as the market shifts, but
I don't think it's going to go away, Steve.
Okay.
I think it's
change.
gotten extremely strong.
But I think what I
Yes.
like about it in the agent model is if you have a really good agent that you can trust to do the job, and you control, as our brokerage does, the vetting part of that equation, right? Let them do their job, let them do what they're going to do, and use the technology as a front end, like, yes, acceptable, unacceptable, or in our case, most of them are reviews, so that we can go back in and do what Dale says, which is the manual process of making sure that that carrier is someone we want to work with. Some of the agents we brought on don't like the process to start, but then they realize, hey, this is actually the way it's supposed to be done. But I think if you can break up, I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to piss some people off, but if you can break up the big conglomerate freight brokers that are using W-2 employees and hiring and firing 30 people every month, and you can step back and say, okay, I've got an agent that can handle $250,000 to $350,000 in revenue a year per each agent, and they know their customers better than anybody. They know the carriers that they work better than anybody, versus handing it off to a carrier setup team or customer service team, whatever. Once margins suppress, I think those people are going to be in a better line to be able to make the money they need to make to, work from home, which is what everybody wants. And they don't want to have to go to the office and be part of the good old boys network. So I just see that coming more and more. And if we can break those up and bring those people on board into agency programs, I think it's going to be better overall for the industry as far as fraud's concerned, because those people are going to be working more closely in line versus having 6 layers of people working on one shipment. Just my thought.
Sure. No, I understand that point of view. And I think where I look at it as far as it's not a matter of what's right or what's wrong. It's a matter of economics is what the way I look at it, Steve. And I mean, typically an agent is someone with a solid book of business that has been in the industry a while. And if you pay someone a percentage of $1 to get something done, and they're a workhorse, they're going to capitalize on that in every possible way that they can. And in the truest form, you're going to get a great relationship out of that. And I think that's a good model. So to just be clear, I have no problem with the agent model, just to place the statement on that. What I'm calling out is that with a market shift, we're going to see the weak points of the agent model get the chinks in that armor are going to be identified. So in the companies
what do you think some of those chinks are? I'm just curious.
Because the customer base that's out there is going to start moving to asset, and the people who think they have customers that are not solid, the people who aren't your 20-year guys, aren't your even the 5-year guys that don't have solidified customer bases but think that they do, they haven't been through cycles, are going to find that their customer bases are going to leave.
The no loyalty part of it, yeah.
Right. So they have not been through this battle yet.
Yeah, that definitely is a thing. You always got to be putting stuff in the top of the funnel, because stuff's going to fall out the bottom. I tell that to people all the time, and there is no loyalty, unfortunately, especially in a market where they can get a little bit cheaper rate. And I think that's where that transparency comes in, and then the rate suppression that's going to happen over the next 5 years, probably, with brokers not being able to make the percentages that they're used to. Especially as all this data comes available and people know what the market will bear. There's still some very uneducated shippers out there that people take advantage of, and that's unfortunate. But I think for the most part, especially the younger generation, they now have the tech and the data to know what the lanes are paying and not overpaying a broker, like we saw with the lawsuit with the Pink Cheetah and the TQL. But
right,
that probably had a little bit of underhanded with the shipping manager, probably getting paid a little bit there too, but who knows?
Yeah.
Dale, I was going to ask you, do you think most of this problem started, obviously COVID, work remote, offshoring, nearshoring, overseas, that kind of stuff all kind of picked up during and after COVID. Do you feel like there's going to be a pullback? And I know there is for us, but a pullback away from that? Like, we don't promote that. We don't, even want to see that in our industry, because especially in the Sprinter van thing now, these companies are fully being run overseas as dispatch services almost, and they're just pulling loads off of Selectus and rebrokering them to people. And we're sending money by the millions of dollars overseas.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think you're going to see some shifts with that. One of the things, I've had some conversations with the new administrator coming in for the FMCSA, and one of the things I've been pushing for a couple of years is that there should be a prerequisite for obtaining operating authority that says if you have 5% or more ownership in a company, that is a prerequisite for obtaining an application for operating authority. You should have a TWIC card. So that's going to eliminate a lot of bad guys in here. I'm not so far against nearshoring, because there are good companies like HubTech who have some good employees. The problem is that when you hire somebody that's a company, so you have an employer of record in that country, that's different than just hiring a kid that's in, Serbia or somewhere and just sending him the money and not knowing who he is, right? So there's a little bit different there with nearshoring. I think you're absolutely right. It started with COVID, because what happened during 2020 is the government was paying people $60,000 a year to stay home and play video games. Why would they go to work? Then all of a sudden, here comes Amazon, and we had to get product out. So the prices went up. We had to hire somebody to do it. So we went to Ukraine, we went to Serbia, we went to Colombia, we went all these places where these people are used to making $500 a month, because that was the salary in those countries. We're offering them $1,000. They're saying, this is great. I've never lived so good. Then people started coming back to work, and we said, okay, we don't need you anymore. But let me tell you that some of these kids in Ukraine are just brilliant kids and are hard workers, and they're now losing a lot of money because they're getting $1,200. But they also are smart enough to know it only takes $300 on a stolen Visa gift card, somebody to give you a BOC authority, and somebody to give you a bond, and you're in business making 20 grand a month. That made them very happy. Their friends learned about it. They said, that makes me happy. It exploded like crazy. Then we started hiring drivers over here with non-domicile CDLs, knowing they can make all kinds of money. That money's all being shipped back overseas, and we got ourselves into a huge problem. If I had my way, the FMCSA would shut off the hose coming in until we get the water out of this basement, right? We're in a flooded basement with thimbles trying to throw water out. Let's shut the hose off for a little while, go through all the people that are in here now and start issuing show cause orders that says you're in violation of a federal law. If you don't fix it in 30 days, you're out. All you people working at UPS stores and post office boxes, whether you know it's illegal or not, we're going to give you 30 days to fix it. If you don't fix it, you're out. If you didn't disclose that you're affiliated with other FMCSA regulated entities, we'll give you 30 days to make all the disclosures, or you're out. Let's get rid of those 6,000 people that are violating those laws. I can tell you that I've talked to the FMCSA about some certain initiatives that we're working on. And I'm pretty fortunate to be able to work with those on some of those initiatives. We already fixed part of the post office box thing, and there's really nobody coming in right now that's violating that, but there's still 7,000 people that are in that are doing it. They are working. They have fixed that on our advice. The people that own multiple MC numbers and not disclose that to the FMCSA, the next modernization is they have to, all of those MC numbers that when they mark that I'm affiliated have to be listed on Safer so you can see those. If they mark that I'm not affiliated, that'll be there too. So now when we find them, they're guilty of perjury. Buying and selling of MC numbers, I can't tell you what the FMCSA has in mind to do that, to fix that, but there is something coming that's going to make a big difference on that, the buying and selling of MC numbers. So I think there's progress being made. I think this administration has done more than anybody in the past 10 years has done, is to try and fix the fraud. And I know in conversations I've had with the higher levels at the FMCSA, I know that Derek Bars is committed to fixing fraud. It is in his craw.
Well, it's definitely getting a lot of pub on social media, that's for sure.
So one thing I do want to call out for this too is that an area that is not talked about enough, I believe, is on the shipper side. And this is not saying shippers are bad, but they are culpable. And if you talk to the average shipping manager or shipping agent or someone who is actually there at the warehouse, their feeling is going to be, once this paperwork's signed and I hand it to a driver, it is not my problem. Mm-hmm. It very much is your problem, because that impacts all types of different things across, whether it's your compensation, whether your inventories. And because there is nothing really being done on that side either, You know, that is a massive gap, which to our points earlier, that fraudsters are exploiting. They're not necessarily always go to a broker. They're going to go to a shipper and say, hey, man, I'll kick you $1,000 a month if you just tell me who's coming through with these shipments.
Yeah. Hey, Bain,
Yeah.
you've been talking about that for a long time, and a lot of others have too. And the shippers are actually starting to hear that, I think. In the last week, I've got 3 appointments already set up. One with a $1 million broker, a couple other small ones that want me to come in there and put their shippers on a webinar as a broker saying, we're going to bring in a fraud guy. We're going to bring in our 2 cents to show you how to do things right, to help us help you. So I think that the shippers are coming more and more into it. The other point is when you look at the Supreme Court case that's going up now, where the 2 districts disagreed on negligence and holding brokers accountable. If the broker's not held accountable, guess who's next? That shipper's going to be held more accountable than ever. So they are learning now to says, I better get ready for that, because that, I'll tell you, that Supreme Court initiative, they're going to rule that brokers aren't responsible. I just know that that's going to happen.
Well, yeah, because that's what the law
plaintiff
is.
attorney needs to find somebody to sue, and it's going to be the shipper.
And that's why we tell our shippers all the time, like we send them the actual bill of lading with the actual carrier's name on it. And so many brokers are still out there putting their own name as the carrier's name, which is wrong. And they need to stop doing that. And I've been doing it for 20 years. We've always done it that. All of us in this room have always done it that way. Like the actual carrier is the name on the bill of lading. That's the person responsible for the cargo. We send the carrier name, MC, DOT number in an email with our system automatically every time a load is booked. And it's just like, I don't understand why other bigger brokers aren't doing that. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, why are you?
I can tell you right now, Steve, why it's happening. Because that salesperson got in saying, we have trucks, we have assets, we will be the carrier, and that is why.
Yeah, 100%, which is not correct. I mean, it's a false statement, and they are not an asset-based brokerage carrier, whatever. And the shipper should know that's incorrect. You know, shippers need to learn, like, if the carrier name is not on the bill of lading, that's not accurate. That's fraud. I mean, right off the bat.
Look back 13 years ago when the case against C.H. Robinson came about and they were sued for a lot of money. Their name was on that bill of lading.
Yep.
Right. Do you know how easy it is to pass that carrier name from the broker? So there's a variety of ways at a small shipper to just provide it. I mean, as a television, as a screen in the room with the carrier name, truck number, driver name, whatever you can collect, or to pass that data through to their system. Most shippers are not very advanced, but can take some form of data field potentially, depending on who they are. And if you're a 3PL of some kind, you're probably providing a good number of trucks to that shipper on a daily basis. And even if it's just as a screen in their facility saying, here's the truck, here's the driver, here's the potential license plate number if you want that too. But that is so easy for someone like us to be able to pipe that data through to a shipper. Yeah, that's not hard. So
APIs, EDIs. I mean, it's so easy today to be able to plug that in. And if you're a shipper moving more than 100 loads a month and you can't manually, physically look at everything, one, you should have video cameras at your facility. And if you're not, you should have a gate for a check-in and check-out. That right there stops 99% of the fraud right there. If you just have cameras and a check-in, check-out gate for every truck that comes into your facility, and you make sure and use a bill of lading that has the proper carrier, and demand that your broker give you the MC and DOT number on every single load, because that's not that hard to have that piece of paperwork with that on there. And your guy at the shipping dock looks at the truck and takes a picture and has instructions. Like, an SOP is important when you're loading trucks. And I'm amazed still some of my customers doing LTL freight still get pallets mixed up. And I'm like, how does that happen? Like, you guys know what order is going to what state. Like, how did you ship?
Being an LTL guy, LTL's hard. So.
I know it is, but it's hard, but it makes no sense to me. I'm like, bro, like you need to ship this pallet to this customer and this pallet to this customer. Like, they're completely different. Like, how did you label them wrong? Like, I know the guy on the dock's one getting paid $15 an hour, but still, I mean, it's just like, it's just mind blowing to me. Like, and it's still to the same point of shippers need to do better is like, I have so many shippers, even on flatbed loads, that don't know or don't want to secure or tell the driver how to secure a load. Like, I'm sorry, if I'm shipping something that I know if they ratchet this down properly or improperly, it's going to damage it. Like, I don't want to remake this stuff. So I'm going to be out there making sure it's done right. every single time because I don't want that stuff coming back to my dock. But
because
again,
they truly don't care though. If you again, you have the average, again, I know there's plenty of anomalies and people that will see this go, well, I'm not that guy. Well, that's cool. Those people still exist.
Yeah.
They are there on the dock and it's just, I need to get this stuff out. I'm going to be graded if I got it out or not. If I suddenly am getting involved in the shipment of the shipment, then now I'm responsible for it. And it's no different than with brokers not giving turn-by-turn directions to drivers. You don't want to be held liable.
Yeah.
And the other thing is shippers have taken a false sense of security. Their idea for a lot of shippers over the last few years, especially it goes with the economy again, that I hired you for a reason. That is your problem. You fix it. And if you don't, I've got, I think about 15 guys have cold called me this morning.
Right.
Yeah, that's always been the case. But on the same hand, I think it comes down to the finance of it too. So the moment they're trying to get it off the dock, because the moment they get it off the dock, most likely they can bill it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. So they've got a process in mind. But I think to Dale's point, they're starting to realize, okay, there's a change here that has to happen. So I'm going to move us along because we got about 5 minutes left. So carriers, brokers, they got a 30-day playbook that they need to put together here to harden their freight fraud exposure. So they want to reduce their freight fraud exposure. Well, what should they do? So Dale, you want to answer that one first?
Well, I think that a lot of it comes back to training. When we talk about checklists, when I had my brokerage, every load went through a checklist, because if you look at anything as stolen or fraudulent activity, it's because something was missed in a checklist. Somebody missed something. So I think that's important. I think that I don't care which platform you use. I've been saying this for a long time. We got to stop fighting each other and start fighting the problem. I don't care if you use highway carriers, your carrier 411, freight validate. I don't care who you use, but use somebody to help you get through the process. And I think that we have to work closer together with those vetting platforms to maybe make it more solid rather than working in silos. If we work together to stop fraud, they can't get through one and get through the other and not get through the other. So I think we have to be kind of more collaborative in that essence. But I think that training, brokers need to train their shippers, but moreover too, brokers have to be trained. There's a law that says brokers have to be trained before they get their authority. Law's never been enforced, but we have to get some training in there.
100%. I totally agree with that. Both from the shipper and the brokerage side of things. Carriers, it takes all of us doing the job the right way to make it happen. And education starts with that. Reach out to somebody that you see, that you trust, and that you vet, that you can trust that they're going to give you the right information. I think we have to continue to push the SaaS platforms that we're using to do more and to provide more back-end stuff to solve the problem. I'm continually pushing Danielle and MCP to like make some improvements when we see a hole in the system. They've done everything. For 5 years, I've been using them. And when I ask for something, they usually put something in place. And so it's a great relationship because we're on the front lines as a broker. We're seeing what is transpiring. And so the next thing, and I was going to say this before she got off, is like, they got to do better with the Sprinter van. Somehow we've got to figure out a way to vet those a little bit differently than we vet everybody else, because we're holding them to the same standards of no inspections or this or that. Well, they don't have to do those kind of things like everybody else. So it's really a little bit more difficult to vet those. And so if you're in the expedited world, I think that they could all do a little bit better job.
Yeah, I'll tell you that since Scott Moskrip came back from to Truck Stop, we're working on some initiatives specifically for Sprinter van vetting. And that'll probably, once we get started with that, I think a lot of times that piggybacks on other platforms to do the same. And that's what we want to see happen.
Yeah.
Bane, you got anything to add?
Fraud's everybody's responsibility. Like, you listen to all the stuff that we just talked about over the last hour, and you have to really distill it down to trust nobody, assume that there is something amiss, and look for the proof that it's not.
Yeah. And encourage your employees to raise their hand when they see something wrong. The manager is not going to be the only person finding it. Train your employees to raise your hand. Hey, see something, say something.
I want to touch on that too, is that if you are incorrect, that everything's on the up and up, you're fine. But if you're correct and you spot something and you prevent a singular theft, one theft, That's $100,000. That is something you can take to your customer. Hey, we prevented this. So you want to know why it's important? Customer stickiness. Your customers know you're taking the steps to prevent their freight from being stolen. When someone comes in at 5 cents a mile less, they're going to think twice about that. Go, hey, like we have not only do we have a dedicated relationship, this person that we hired to do this job. Talking about earlier, Nate, like I don't want it to become your problem. That's why we hire people so it becomes their problem. This is a great way to do that.
I'd like
We
to see
almost
us
need to
start
make sure that we don't
incentivizing-
hire. Go ahead.
I'd like to see us start incentivizing people for finding fraud within their company, just as much as we incentivize them for finding the ways to get the fraud out.
People do what you pay them to do.
Absolutely.
They're not going to do much more than that. That's for sure.
All right. So I'll just recap and then we'll close her out here. So yeah, I think verify, train, and I started this out with you can't start with a gut instinct, but you do have to rely on gut instinct too. So even though things are verified, even though you have all the training, but sometimes when things feel off, it doesn't hurt to go back and verify again and double check yourself or even triple check yourself, because sometimes it's just off, and you'll find out that it is. So sometimes you just have to go on your gut.
Gut feeling. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Gut feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So
A second
establishing
look works
those-
way better than technology.
Go ahead.
A
Yeah,
second look
absolutely.
works way better than technology.
Yep. So, all right, Steve, where can people find you?
NTWD Equip Trans on all social media. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Not as active on there as I am on TikTok, but you'll see me at all the conferences. I'll be at BACS in Orlando next week. I look forward to seeing everybody there and networking and doing the real work of face-to-face networking with carriers and brokers and tech stacks and platforms. So it'll be interesting to see who shows up.
Good deal. Look forward to seeing you everybody next week. I'll hold off on that. So Dale, go ahead.
You can find me. I'll sometimes occasionally be on LinkedIn. I'm
Occasionally.
Every 5 seconds.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
During this podcast, man.
If you don't see me post something on LinkedIn for 15 minutes, call 911. I may have had something.
Yeah.
But my email address is info@freightvalidate.com. You can also reach me at daleprax@truckstop.com.
And Bain.
Balls so hard, everybody want to find me. You can email me at rbain@glcs.net. You can find me on LinkedIn, rbain Struggle Span Logistics. If you want to watch the powerlifting journey, you can find me at bain316 on the Instagrams.
And I still got to run this little video from Steve's last little visit here. So hold on 1 second.
Uh-oh. What happened? Nate froze on me. Oh, that's not good. Where did Nate go? Shoot. Do I hit refresh? What do I do?
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do an outro. We'll just take this out together. So stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching, everybody.
See you guys.